Okay, so I've finished my essay and now I need to check it for formatting before I turn it in. The first thing I want to do is single space everything so I can see my entire essay in a condensed version. The easiest way to do that is to hold down the Control key and press the letter A. That will select all of my text. I'm going to come up here to the line spacing icon and select single. So now everything's kind of condensed down and I can see more of my essay at once. First thing I want to do is check the font of my paper because I've been copying and pasting from different places as I've assembled my paper. I can see right away there's a problem here in the middle. Most of my paper looks the same, but this quotation that I've pasted in, if I click into that, and I can see up here, this is an Arial and it's 14. So I'm going to select all of my text again, select Times New Roman, and 12, just to make sure all of my text is correctly formatted in the right font style and size. The next thing that I want to look at is my header up here in the top right hand corner. It should be about a ½ inch from the top of the page and 1 inch in from the side, which is the correct setting for MLA. I need to check my font. A lot of times when you're looking here, you're going to see this in Arial, looking like this. If you see that your name up here doesn't match your name down here, something's wrong. And the problem is that Arial is oftentimes the default setting for Google Docs, so you need to make sure to change that back to Times New Roman so that it is correctly formatted. Also, you need to make sure there's a space between your last name and your page number. You don't want to see them right up against each other like that. Make sure you have a space there. The next thing I want to look at is my heading up here in the top left-hand corner. I should have my first and last name as a student on the first line, my teacher's name on the second line. The third line should contain the class I'm in and the period or hour when I have the class. And the last line should contain the date in this format. Make sure it's the day, the month, and the year. There should be no commas in this date because the word separates the two numerals. The next thing I want to look at is my title. Make sure that you have an original title here, that I should not see the word essay. Make sure when you click into here that this centering icon is highlighted. You don't ever want to try to center text with the space bar or the tab key. Just use the center icon to center your text. I also want to check for correct capitalization. Remember that we capitalize all words in a title except for articles, conjunctions, and prepositions unless they are the first or last word. All 3 of my words are correctly capitalized, so I'm good to go. Again, I'm in 12 point, Times New Roman. This title should not be any bigger than any other print on the page. There should be no quotation marks here. There should be no underlining and no bold. It should look like everything else on the page. The next thing I want to look at is the spacing in my paragraphs. When I look down here, I should see all these lines the same distance apart. What I should not see are extra spaces in between paragraphs like this. If you see extra spaces, you need to get rid of those at this point. Now we're going to scroll down and take a look at our works cited page. You need to make sure that, again, my title is centered using the center icon. Both the W and the C should be capitalized. Make sure you have an S on the word works because these are the multiple works that have been cited in your paper. Especially important is to make sure that I have a header here. If this is in the same electronic document, that should not be a problem. Sometimes people who assemble the works cited page separate from the essay forget that this page needs a header as well with the correct page number for where it sits in the document. Again, I need to make sure that my line spacing is all the same, no extra line spaces in between entries. And very important on this page is I need to make sure that my entries are in reverse indentation. We call it that because it's the reverse of the way we write a paragraph. When we write a paragraph, the first line is indented, and every line that wraps back around comes out here and starts at the margin line. In a works cited entry, it's exactly the opposite. All of the first lines start out here at the margin line, and any lines that wrap around are indented. You definitely do not want to try to do that with the tab key or the space bar. If you click into any one of these entries, you can see up here on the ruler that this is how you set that up, so it does it automatically for you. This is also a good time to double check that the only entries that are here are the entries that you cited in your paper. Again, this is a works cited page. That means this is a list of the full entries of all the works I cited in my paper. Last but not least, I need to check to make sure this list is alphabetized according to the first letter of every entry. So I see B, C, H, I, M, and N. And then I have two that start with vaccine. I have vaccine space and vaccine S with vaccines. So yes, this is correctly alphabetized. Before I finish my paper and double space it again back to normal, I need to do a dead word check. I know that there are certain words that I'm not allowed to use in my paper, and I could just proofread it and go through it and hope that I find them, but that's a little difficult. Sometimes we stop seeing our own work because we kind of start to have our own paper memorized. The easiest way to do a dead word search is to hold down the Control key and type the letter F. That brings up this find box up here. So I know that I'm not allowed to use the words you or your in this essay. Both of those words contain the letters Y-O-U. So once it does that, it tells me up here that there are 3 instances of Y-O-U in the paper. If I look down here at the bottom, I can see the first one highlighted here in green. This is in the word your, but I can see that this is inside a title, so that one is allowed. I'm going to click this down caret to see the next one. The next one's up here. I see I've accidentally used the word you, and in fact I can see it's down here again in your. So I know that before I turn in this paper I need to fix those. The other thing that I know I'm not supposed to use in this paper is said. I've typed the word said in this find box. It tells me there are 0 instances, so I don't need to worry about that. If I saw the word said highlighted somewhere, unless it's in a direct quotation or part of a title, I would need to change that by going back to my list of words to use instead of said. Now that I know I don't have any dead words in my paper, it's time to put my paper back to double spacing so it's ready to turn in. I'm going to use the same method by holding down the Control key and pressing the letter A, so all of my text is again highlighted. I'm going to come up to the spacing icon and click double. Now my paper is ready to be turned in. All of my text is in 12 point Times New Roman. I have a correctly formatted header in the top right hand corner with my last name and the appropriate page number separated by a space. I have the correct information in the correct order, double spaced and correctly formatted in the top left. My title is centered and correctly capitalized and formatted. All of my text is evenly spaced and double spaced. And my works cited page is in alphabetical order, in reverse indentation, and only contains the works that are cited in my paper. I removed any extra entries. Now my paper is ready to be submitted.